Hello, my name is Brandon and I'm your host for this series of tutorials for discoDSP's synth Corona. And in this video we're going to be going over the modulation matrix section, which looks a lot more intimidating than it actually is. And we're going to be using the same patch as we have in previous videos, which is number 33 in the program bank, or GL Dirty Mono Lead JP. So when you first look at this section, you see, okay, it's all drop down boxes and sliders, compared to everything else when we're used to knobs. And since we're kind of familiar with the knobs, we look at the drop-down boxes and we see everything's labeled to what all the other knobs are labeled. So it's safe to conclude that these drop-down boxes link all these knobs together somehow. And if you're unsure how, well, that's why I'm here. So let's take a look at the basic structure of the modulation matrix. At the very top we have two buttons that are labeled 1 through 4 and 5 through 8. What this does is gives us two sections of the panel you see now. We have 1 through 4, which you can see there are 4 rows, 1, 2, 3, 4. If we hit 5 through 8, it opens up a second page of these. And this literally gives us thousands of combinations that we can use to make our sound expand even greater. So let's look at what the drop-down boxes do. The first row, which is purple, is the modulation destination. Right after the purple row, there are two black rows, which is your modulation sources. So let's take a look at the very first row. The destination is the level. So level is back at our oscillator section. So we know our destination is level. So the source, meaning what's going to affect the level, is selected as velocity. Velocity is how hard you hit your keys on your keyboard. So depending on how hard you hit your keys is going to affect the level of your synth. So the harder you hit your key, the louder your synth is going to play out. Okay, that makes pretty good sense. So the second box that we have that you can also assign to level is selected as none. When you have none selected, that row is disabled. Let's take a look at a row where both sources are selected. Let's go to row 3 and look at phase. Phase is also located in the oscillator section, and as a source we have the filter LFO and the mod wheel. The filter LFO is located in the middle of Corona, which when we talked about, we said it controlled the filter. In this case, we're going to be able to use the filter LFO to also control the phase, kind of as an alternative routing, while it is also controlling the filter section. So it has dual purposes. In the mod wheel, which you can either use the built-in mod wheel on the Corona synth, or you can use it on your keyboard, it is also assigned to the phase. This means that when we use the mod wheel, that is going to be what allows the filter LFO to access the phase in the oscillator section. I'm going to play a note and let you know how the filter LFO is going to affect the oscillator section while I'm using the mod wheel. While it doesn't directly show in the phase above in the oscillator section, it is actually affecting it. So if I was to go up there by myself with my mouse and play a note and adjust it with my mouse, you'll be able to hear the same thing. But if I go even further, it doesn't sound anything like it did when I used the mod wheel. Right next to each row is the slider. And the slider has a plus and negative side. In this row it's at plus 12%, which means when you have the mod wheel at max, it's only going to allow 12% of the phase to be used, setting a max point. If I was to adjust the 12% all the way up to 100%, it would allow me to use the full 127 value of the phase knob, sounding like this. Just like it did when we were doing it by hand. And since this page is already full, we could go ahead and switch over to the 5 through 8 section, and we could add our own where nothing is already set on the program bank file. You can kind of consider the modulation matrix as a patch bay, or how you would hardwire synth if it was a hardware synth. Now you can start assigning all of your envelopes and LFOs to parts of your vibrato and oscillators. Just when you think you're running out of options, Corona decides to beef it up a little bit.